clueless and more clueless. And I'm saying, oh, that is so interesting. And just if we don't know the second usage for eyes, okay, you can check the first usage, the second usage, thing is established. This is a biblical principle of Bible research. It's not even a very deep one, but it's there. Okay, so its second usage is in Genesis 3:6, where the serpent is trying to say, when Eve is and then she's thinking, so, well, the tree, I look at it, this tree, it was a delight to the eyes. So she's saying, she's using the word exactly as it is the word eyes, and it is a delight to the trees. Then in 3:7, it's used again when Adam partakes now, and the whole deed is done, and the eyes of both of them were opened. So let's just be really clear on this. Oh my gosh. All right. Now, let's go back, keep going on to this verse. So we have Joseph is a fruitful bough, even a fanciful bow by a well. That's what they translated, but I told you what the words are. Now the last, we have to look at whose branch runs over the wall. I got to move up because I really want to get to, okay, so this word branch and run over the wall. So let me just get this. First of all, the word daughters, the word branches is, if it is the word branch, is the word daughters. So we're talking about a son, and some of the translations do use the word daughter. If you look at them, it's 265 times. It's used branches once right here. I mean, these people just make it, I don't know. Anyways, I think they're making it up. Because, see, they don't want us to know. Satan does not want us to know the truth. If you don't think he's in the translations trying to cloud the vision of the elect, well, then you just don't understand what's going on. Anyways, so it's, and its root is from the word ben. So both of them, daughter and son, come from the same root word. Now what's even interesting is, I went into somebody else's little comment who really got into the Hebrew and really was looking at who could read Hebrew, which I can't do, which is, I wish I could, I will learn, the little jot and tittles things, and daughter and son are so close, you could, a scribal error, a small scribal, it could have been son, that the scribe, it became daughter in somebody's later translation. And this is why, and when I get all done with this, I will tell you why I think it's important to do it the way I'm doing it, okay, whatever. Now, the word, all right, we'll get to that. Now, in the Septuagint, let me just give you this translation now. In the Septuagint and in the Samaritan Pentateuch, which are Old Testament translations, the Septuagint says that Joseph is a son increased. So at least we got son here. My dearly loved son is increased, saying the same thing. My youngest son turned to me. Okay? Then you get into the Septuagint paragraph, Pentateuch, where it says, a fruitful son, and a son increased and a fruitful son are pretty close. And because the word fruitful it means increase, cause to grow. Joseph is a fruitful son, but again, by a spring, my son, my young one, upon, and this is the one upon an ox, because when I read everything and looked at this is how I would, the best I can do today with the mind of Christ, I feel like I can go with this, because I can cross-reference through all the Bible and all the readings I've done, and this, and when there was one person who's really deep in the Hebrew could say, because son and daughter, a little scribal error, but also, instead of the word wall, another thing, very, very, very closely related words, wall and ox. Okay, so let's put this thing back together in what could be a more, the Spirit's intent, or let's just put it, this is Jacob talking to Joseph, okay, at the time he's passing on the patriarchal blessings. Because if we take out the word wall and put in the word ox, then I think we're really getting somewhere. If we take out the word bough and put in the word son, and if we we have a clear understanding of what fruitful is, and by a spring we understand that the eyes, and there is a spirit, and this is where the idea of having spiritual eyes too, because you don't just see with our physical eyes. We understand as Christians you need to see things spiritually. There's many layers, there's many realms to this thing. So let's put this back together. Where Joseph is, he is a fruitful son. He is a fruitful son with eyes that see. If you read this, understand the story of Joseph, This is one guy. And I would tell you because I'm going to run out of time to get. I read everything. Deuterocanonical, pseudographic, apocryphal, the lost books, Dead Sea Scrolls. And I think it is my reading, largely and liberally in Judeo-Christian writings, that allows me to have the Holy Spirit to prompt me to be able to put these pieces of the puzzle. And there are people all over the world doing this. You know, here I'm sitting at my little computer on my internet. Nowhere, no other time in history could somebody sit there and at the click of a button compare manuscripts from all over the world from thousands of years. People, you do not understand what an unremarkable time we live in, and for a reason. Oh my gosh, that internet is not there for you to play Candy Crush on. Oh my gosh. Anyways, this is so important because if the word ox is the animal that is associated with Ephraim, okay? Every tribe had an animal because God, a lot of times, this is where you have to understand all these different levels and all the different pictorial, graphic, and parabolic language the prophets use, because sometimes Ephraim is referred to as a heifer or an ox. Okay, so if you don't know that, and then you're not. Dan is an eagle, and I'm going to show you this now. But let me just put that aside because I'm telling you, this is a time of great deception. The elect are going to be deceived. You don't understand how deep, how the enemy has been at this thing. Christians, we live in this little box, especially in the West. They've even ruled out to most of Christianity. Most Christians today don't even believe in a spiritual kingdom that is operating right over your shoulder, people. The greatest thing an enemy can do to you, I mean, he can come and box your ears, and you don't even know he's there. Can you imagine what could be worse than being buffeted by somebody and you don't even know they're there, and you can't? It's crazy when you're in a war and your enemy can do that to you. So anyways, let me go down to this because there is this whole concept. Because when I saw the word ox, and then it all fell into place, and I thought, yeah, that has to be what happened, because there have been scribal errors. Oh my gosh, how could, very few, and we can fix them, we can get to the bottom of it. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater and get all upset and think, oh, it's not reliable. There's been enough people across the centuries with enough text that you can cross-reference. Be an Issachar scholar, and just do your homework. It's not hard. I'm just a little girl, and I'm doing it, and I have the best time of my life. Nothing can compare. Now, let me just tell you this, this is what is so interesting to me, because I want to tell you that the people that God has done this, and what's even more interesting, the Christian church across the world, these are the people, these are the Ephraimites that God has called back to himself. He said he would do it, and he has done it. He has renewed the covenant with them again. They call him husband now. Understand the bride of Christ, how this thing is played out. But the government, the blessings of this thing, how to put it this way. God, who knows every hair on your head and every seed on the planet, referring to people, brought the remnant, a remnant of this people group that were sold out to him. And those people came to this country, and by the Spirit of the living God, with the mind of Christ, they knew this is the godly heritage of this country, and you cannot erase it or deny it because it is there. Because I'll show you books from my personal genetic history, these people. They came here because they knew God was leading to a place, another place that was out of the reach, a new place to plant a new Jerusalem, to be a place. And today, people, we are geographically going to end up being a place out of the dragon's reach. This is so huge, this understanding, as it comes forward and people can grab it, this is the card God's going to play. There will be a city of refuge. There will be a city on a hill. There will be a place as Satan pours out his wrath, so to speak, on the world. Okay, God is not, and this is so important because the house of Ephraim and the house of Joseph and those that have attached themselves to it are here and in governmental position. The government is on his shoulders. This is one nation under God. Let me tell you that God is Yahweh. Now, there are tares here. This is our problem. There are tares here. They are planted deep. The enemy, let me tell you, the field, don't you understand? The wheat and the tares got planted side by side. They've been growing side by side. It's been so hard to tell them apart all these years and thousands and centuries and in this country. I know people have undug this whole history of the tares, and it's here. I don't deny it. Washington, D.C. Oh, my gosh. It's like, how could we have been so clueless? Oh, jeez. But it's true, and it's here, and we have a problem. And the only way we're going to get around our problem, or we're going to fix our problem, is if my people who are called by my name, that means the house of Ephraim and the house of Judah and those that have attached themselves that are here and saved by the blood of the Lamb, as my people humble themselves and ask for forgiveness and repentance, he will rise up and defend us. And that's going to happen. And I don't know how he's got to knock us upside the head, because our enemy is here. And, and I'll tell you what, you don't think just look at what these ISIS people are doing. They're here. That seed is not a good seed. God did not plant that seed. I'll tell you what, you better begin to judge by the fruit, good fruit and bad fruit, and figure out whose side they're on, okay? It's really pretty clear. Now, this is what's interesting. I will digress from that little, because getting back to the ox, okay, now, in the last days, and this is what I am seeing, there's so much stuff that I am seeing and trying to put together, and I can't quite come out. I don't want to come out and really say it all until I really feel like I've got my ducks in a row, that I kind of really, but this Ephraim and Manasseh, this concept of the prophetic destiny of America, that we are the place out of the dragon's reach, that the Christians that are here who aren't really Christians, we're just the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and all the seed, the blended seed that's always been out there that is coming in and attaching itself to this thing, okay, how we will rise up in our authority, in our understanding, with the Lord's help, under his covering. I don't know. But the thing is, Isaac Newton, talk about a segue here. Isaac Newton, brilliant man, one of the greatest scientists that ever lived, one of the most brilliant minds, who really, he was a scientist, and he discovered gravity, and, he discovered the fracture of light, the prism in the light. I mean, amazing. But what he really spent his life doing, and what his real passion, he was the biggest Bible student on the planet. Bible nerd number one. He relentlessly studied scriptures. That guy, if you study him, he would go around the world looking for ancient texts, and having them shipped to him. He had probably one of the best libraries of ancient texts of probably anyone of his generation in his time. And he was looking for some of these mysteries. He was trying to understand. But one of the things that he did understand, because what I'm trying to tell people, you have to understand this thing on many levels, that God speaks at different times in many ways, and one of them is parabolically. Like I said, the animals, every tribe had an animal insignia. They did have these flags. They did have these ensigns. They did have colors to them. There were many ways, and these things really symbolic. People who track, I think it's called symbology. I don't know. There is a science of studying emblems. That some of this stuff can be tracked. Satan is not being able to erase everything off the face of the planet. I mean, it's just not, he can't do that, and he has never been able to do that. So those that, if you're diligent, we can reclaim this heritage and retrack it. But there's a verse in Isaiah, because at the end, that's what I was going to say, all my readings are pointing to the understanding that, we really are going to rise up as the people of God, and with the Lord's, as we're being changed, those who know their God will be strong and do exploits. It is, tell the righteous, I'll tell you in the middle of the tribute, tell the righteous it'll be well with them, but woe to the wicked. Oh, absolutely. This thing is going to wrap up, and this is why the Jubilees are important. So I understand, like I've said, the 6,000 years, it was never a big secret. Okay, it has become a big secret in the last 150 years because us Christians, we just, especially since World War II, and we have been so dumbed down, and we have so sold our anointing, and we have allowed these preachers to just feed us with such bunk and make buku money off it. I mean, what are we thinking? Can you just see Jesus doing that? I don't think so. So anyways, but in Isaiah, this is because this is going to happen very soon. This is my understanding, and I do stick to it. Isaiah 13, there's a very interesting verse. He starts here by saying, raise a banner on a bear, and that's a hilltop. Oh, I know, I have to before I say that. I shouldn't. Because if you went to, and I got to go back to the whole thing with that Genesis 49 verse of Joseph's blessings. If you were to read Genesis 49:26 about the mountains and the age-old hills, and I shouldn't even get there. This is why we have to understand the word, what hills are representing, what mountains are representing. But I just saw that in my notes, and I should have just left it there. There's a verse here. It says, to raise up a banner on a bare hilltop, shout to them, beckon to them, to enter the gates of the nobles, for I have commanded my holy ones. You got to know, people, who are the holy ones? I have summoned my warriors. Who are his warriors? To carry out my wrath, those who rejoice in my triumph, says Yahweh. Listen, a noise on the mountains, like that of a great multitude. Listen, an uproar among the kingdoms, the nations massing together. The Lord Almighty is mustering an army for war. They come from faraway lands, from the ends of the heavens. The Lord and the weapons of his wrath to destroy the whole country. Wail, for the day of the Lord is near. It will come like destruction from the Almighty. Because of this, all hands will go limp. Every man's heart will melt. Terror will seize them, and pain and anguish. They will look aghast. And who are they? Those who aren't part of the, they is the wicked, okay? They will see the day of the Lord is coming, to make the land desolate and to destroy the sinners within it, the stars of heaven. That is such apocryphal language. I cannot even unpack it right now. Most people are clueless. But what I want to tell you, this banner on the mountain, this is the revelation of the whole house of Israel, because people, what you haven't understood, and when I do unpack Genesis and what happened in the garden, just like he said, there's seed of the serpent and there's seed of the woman. And you're just going to have to pack that thing. You're just going to have to unpack it. You're going to have to be able to follow the Lamb where he goes. And it's just like the disciples were saying when Jesus said, hey, you got to eat my blood and drink my body. Eat my body and drink my blood. And they couldn't go with him because I was just like, what are you talking about? You got to follow this thing through. God has so many layers of understanding to this thing. And this whole idea of a war, hey, we don't war against flesh and blood. This is not talking about genocide. People, get your head into God, into heaven. His will be done on earth as it is in heaven. But what I want to show you, Isaac Newton figured this out, and this is really interesting, because there's two big mysteries in Hebraic understandings. Genesis is considered a highly parabolic mystery book. Also, Ezekiel's vision in Ezekiel chapter 1. They call it the Merkabah. Those wheels and those beasts, the living creatures, okay? Now, and it's actually, if people wouldn't be afraid, because fear does not come from the Father, so people wouldn't be afraid to read the Kabbalah, read your Gnostic text, read all this stuff, because you can actually put it together. The Bible says we all know in part, and we all prophesy in part. So if we took all the different parts, maybe, and with the mind of Christ and the help of the Holy Spirit, try to put it together, that's the last thing the enemy wants. This is what it says. This is what Isaac Newton said on his idea of, it's in Revelation and it's in Ezekiel's vision. And it is this concept of the Merkabah, the living creatures that are mentioned in Revelation, that are mentioned in Ezekiel. And he says, in the midst of the throne and round the throne were four beasts full of eyes before and behind. And then it talks, and this is, and the first beast was like a lion. The second was like a calf. The third had the face of a man. And the fourth was like a flying eagle. The people of Israel in the wilderness, this is the end sign that is going to be raised. See, and one of the things, when you understand Kabbalah, that's why I said it's the deepest science, it goes all the way from the subatomic level, which is really where the action is going on, if you'd like to know, for those in the know. It is truly what's going on, and this is the whole thing, and I'm going to end, if I have time, with this quote about the hidden things. The secret powers of lawlessness and the hidden. There's a whole, all this stuff is really being played out in a large extent in a whole subatomic kind of realm we can't see. Doesn't mean it isn't happening, up to the highest heaven. And it is sort of like a computer. This is the dualism. This is what is so fascinating. You can actually run two programs. One mainframe computer can actually run two programs at the same time that don't really, as above, so below. I mean, for people who can track with me, this can actually happen. I mean, we can do this with technology. We can understand that with technology, this can happen. This is not beyond. So you can have a mainframe running two programs simultaneously. Same thing, that are the same thing, but they're in different realms. As above, so below. I mean, I just love this stuff. This just gets me excited. I'm just throwing that out there. But the point is, oh my gosh, I know I've lost a lot of people, but I know there's a couple people out there that are really tracking, and this, you'll find this interesting. Now, let me show you. This is what Israel looked like, and I don't know if we can get a close-up of this. This is what Israel looked like in the wilderness, okay? This is what the 12 tribes, which I will tell you about a blended nation, especially, by the time they left, not only were there those of these, if you read in Deuteronomy and in Leviticus, the counts that they did, there was some of the tribes, but then there were all these people, extras, thousands and thousands of people that attached themselves not only to this mission they were on, but to the same God. So don't ever tell me this thing is not all about a blended genetic multitude from the very beginning. It's just that how did God, he did pick a people. Oh, he picked a people on the planet. All right. Anyways, this is, you have to see, I don't know if you can see this. This is what they, if you were had in a plane over Israel as she was camped in the wilderness in this time with Moses, all those thousands of years ago, this is what you'd see. You'd actually see across the formations, the way they camped would be a huge cross. Now that is fascinating to me anyways. Then you would have, God broke them down. There's 12 tribes, but he broke them down. They had flags, they had ensigns, because you really figure out, you got to be very organized to be a standing army or a group of people in a wilderness moving around. You better be organized. So you have up here, you have in the west, Ephraim. Okay, so this thing actually, I think it would go like, because if the west is over here and the east is here, the north and south. Does that make sense? So I probably drew this thing on the page wrong. So, sorry. This would look like the north, but it's really the west. I hope you can follow me. Which, just let me tell you what, it talks about Ephraim, the predominant majority, coming from the west in the last day. So where do you think the west is in relation? This is all in relation to Jerusalem. That's us, first of all. Now, Ephraim, his animal is the ox. Under Ephraim are 3 tribes. So these are 3 tribes camped under this flag, this ensign of Ephraim. You go straight down to the east, and you have Judah. Judah, who is geographically in the east of this thing, so she'd be like this, okay? And the animal for Judah is the lion, okay? Then you have over here Dan, who also was a lead tribe, because remember, he put them over captains of hundreds and captains of thousands. So you have Dan here is over the north, which is such an interesting code word. That's why geographically this thing, when God uses the geography from the north country, the king of the north, Dan has some very interesting prophecy about him. So if you don't understand this geography thing from the get-go, you're going to get lost in a lot of the parabolic language. But it's the eagle. I'm over here, the eagle. And then you have Reuben over here in the south, which is just so interesting parabolically. Reuben did go south in his life. I will tell you a little secret. If you know the story of Reuben, he was the genetic firstborn, technically. But his moral conduct in his life sent him totally south. He lost the blessings of the firstborn totally, and his symbol is man. Okay? These 4, the ox, remember this, the ox, the lion, the man, and the eagle, these are the exact same living creatures, the parabolic living creatures that these prophets are seeing in Revelation, in Ezekiel, in the throne of God. Now, Isaac Newton So it says, as the people of Israel in the wilderness camped around the tabernacle, and on the east were 3 tribes under the standard of Judah, the west were 3 tribes under the standard of Ephraim, on the south were 3 tribes under the standard of Reuben, and on the north were 3 tribes under the standard of Dan. The standard of Judah was a lion, Ephraim an ox, Reuben a man, and Dan an eagle. Whence were framed the hieroglyphics. See, a hieroglyphics is just a pictorial language. Don't think that the Egyptians are the only ones who have pictorial. Hebrew, as it's, is a very pictorial or hieroglyphic language. And if we could, of the cherubim and the seraphims, whose wings and many eyes represent the people of Israel. This thing is so deep. A cherubim had one body with 4 faces, the faces of a lion, a man, and an eagle, looking to the 4 winds of heaven without turning about, as Ezekiel vision says. And the 4 seraphims had the same 4 faces with 4 bodies, 1 face to everybody. Now, I did this whole thing on some of the parabolic language. And this is, if you don't understand that this thing, what is hidden, what is important to understand about this thing, the redeemed of Israel, there is a body of people that are going to get their act together. Praise the Lord. They are going to raise an ensign on a mountain. They are going to defeat, with the Lord's help, who is at the head of his armies. He's always what, I have to say this last thing, and in the very middle, what they were camped around, I'm sorry to even tell you this, is what? The Holy of Holies, the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, the tabernacle. And that's where the Levites, the high priests were, who understood the mysteries, okay? So the whole thing, it centers, is around this, okay? These people are going to raise a standard. Their banner is going to go back up. And it's up Bear Mountain at this point, I'll tell you what. And they are going to, with the Lord at the head of his armies. This is where we're going. And we will understand all this. I thank you for your patience, and I hope that wasn't too chaotic. But I just praise the Lord, because there is nothing like Torah study. It says that wisdom is the principal thing. As you get it and you get understanding, you are going to get to the mountain heights. So it's all glory goes to him in the precious name of Yahushua HaMashiach.